Dispute over nuclear inspections shows how U.S. and Iran are negotiating in public. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Add AP News on Google. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Share Tokyo app. The head of the UN's nuclear agency said Wednesday that Iranian nuclear enrichment sites would be visited by his inspectors as part of the interim U.S. Iran deal to reach an end to the war. An Iranian diplomat instead insisted any such visit would only come after a final deal. The comments echoed contradictory remarks about nuclear inspections a day earlier from the U.S. and Iran. During the week since the two countries signed the deal, their leaders have repeatedly disagreed in public about what that document actually means. International Atomic Energy Agency head Rafael Mariano Grossi on Wednesday acknowledged the war of words over Iran's nuclear program, but the dueling narratives are playing out on several fronts, including Israel's war with Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants in Lebanon and how Tehran will spend billions of dollars once unfrozen. Through the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, the U.S. and Iran agreed to a 60-day period to iron out these and other details. Until that happens, during private talks, leaders from both countries will also continue to negotiate in public, raising the risks of derailing the shaky ceasefire in the region. The fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, a threat to the U.S.-Iran diplomacy, flared on Wednesday. Israel launched an airstrike that killed 2 people in southern Lebanon, the country's state-run news agency said. It was Israel's first airstrike on Lebanon since the latest ceasefire took effect on Saturday. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military on the strike. Read more. UN's nuclear agency head says inspections will happen since Israel launched a 12-day war on Iran in 2025. The idea has been blocked by Tehran from visiting enrichment sites. The Islamic Republic is believed to store enough highly enriched uranium to potentially build as many as 10 nuclear weapons, should it choose. Iran maintains that its program is peaceful, though it is the only country in the world to have uranium enriched up to 60% purity without a weapons program. Grossi's remarks were the firmest yet from the United Nations agency, which is central to determining the status of Iran's nuclear stockpile. I can understand political statements, they are part of the reality, but the fundamental thing I would like to remind you and draw your attention to is that there has been a memorandum of understanding signed by both presidents, he said at the tsunami-hit Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Sign up for Morning Wire. Our flagship newsletter breaks down the biggest headlines of the day. Email address sign up by checking this box. You agree to AP's terms of use and acknowledge that AP may collect and use your data pursuant to our privacy policy. The accord says explicitly that the nuclear activities that are going to be carried out with regards to the nuclear material facilities will be supervised by the IDR. In all letters, he said. Obviously, to do that, we will have to inspect, Grossi said. Whether this happens the day after tomorrow or in 1 week or in 10 days, it's important, but not essential. This is going to happen. The deal calls for Iran's uranium to be downblended from highly enriched levels. Kazem Ghoraiberbadi, an Iranian deputy foreign minister, took a swipe at Grossi after his remarks, saying Tehran didn't meet with him while in Switzerland. App Audio. UN nuclear boss says inspectors will visit Iran sites. Tehran says only after a final deal. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the head of the UN's nuclear agency has signaled that Iranian nuclear enrichment sites would be visited by his inspectors. These issues will be reviewed and decided only within the framework of a final agreement and as a result of practical action by the other side to end all sanctions and other measures. Ghoraiberbadi wrote on X. He added, "You cannot advance the stir-up and take over policy with media hype. IR blocked from seeing bombed sites. The IR has been allowed to visit other nuclear sites in Iran since the 2025 war, but without accessing the enrichment sites. The IR says it can't verify the status of Iran's stockpile. Both Iran and the IR say Tehran hasn't been enriching uranium, but not proliferation. Experts worry the Islamic Republic may be moving its stockpile. The U.S. and Iran agreed to the deal last week that calls for Tehran to dilute its stockpile of enriched uranium and waves U.S.-backed sanctions on Iranian oil. But the uneasy ceasefire already has been tested by Iran saying it closed the Strait of Hormuz again over fighting between Israel and the Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's defense minister said Wednesday the U.S. has not demanded that Israel withdraw from Lebanon. Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu later declared that as long as I am prime minister, we will maintain the security zone in southern Lebanon. Lebanese and Israeli officials are meeting this week in Washington as part of direct negotiations between the two countries, through which Lebanon hopes to reach a plan for Israeli withdrawal. Technical-level talks between the U.S. and Iran are expected to resume early next week in Switzerland, Pakistan's foreign ministry said Wednesday. Pakistan has been a key mediator. U.S. has planned to oversee Iran's frozen funds. The interim deal also includes a pledge to unfreeze billions in Iranian assets. U.S. President Donald Trump wants that money to go toward buying American-grown crops, but Iranian officials say they should decide how it's spent. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said his department would have people in Qatar to oversee what happens with the funds. He said in a CNBC interview that Iran would spend a very large percent of its released money on U.S. foodstuffs and medicines. We will be recycling the money back into U.S. products, Bessent said. Marco Rubio is in the Middle East. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio traveled in the Persian Gulf for a three-nation tour, starting with a meeting in Abu Dhabi with Emirati President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the State Department said Wednesday. We're not going to do anything that undermines the security of our allies, Rubio later said while in Kuwait, where the Trump administration announced the limited reopening of